up your life.
We need to know whether we are doing the right thing. We need to sit down in our planning board and really have this as a public discussion. Because the more we keep quiet, the worse it becomes. Right now here, we have so many young men who have come here, and they are talking about their mothers. They are not talking about their fathers. And some of them, by the way, the problems they are in right now is because of lack of parenthood. We need to be very honest. How watoto ambao ni wa single mother, mababa zao wako wapi? And why do we want to pretend that this is not a problem? So for me, I'm saying, in as much as we are talking about our church and our culture, we need to go back to the drawing board and discuss this issue and come up with a solution. Now, Wakikuyu, tuwe honest to ourselves. Tuwe honest to ourselves. When we had our polygamous fathers and our forefathers, what wrong did they do?
Well, we've accepted that polygamy is fine. We should embrace it, destigmatize it. It was the colonials that demonized it, and it's something we can work with and perhaps need. What we want to look at now is the flip side of the coin. Polyandry. What do you think, CT?
In many polygamous relationships, we keep going back to our forefathers, assuming that is our forefathers are the only ones who had polygamy. They structured it. It was normal. Polyandry existed side by side.
Really?
Yes.
Tell us more.
You see, one of the things that most people don't understand, because you'd ask, this is an 80-year-old man. He has a 19-year-old wife. How does this work? That's where now community assistance programs came in. There would be a younger cousin or a younger this or a younger the other.
And was this sort of known but unspoken?
It was known.
The 80-year-old man knew? Was he lucid?
In my community, it wouldn't matter, because so long as that lady was the wife, any children born by that woman were his children. It didn't matter.
All right.
It didn't matter.
Interesting. I know in the Kikuyu tradition, there's a myth or a rumor, or perhaps even true, that women are encouraged to steal one from outside in case there's what you call a kirumi.
Yeah, it's a curse.
Coming from the man's side, just so that you change the lineage and you add a bit of variety.
Just
into
to add
your
on
lot.
to that, actually, in the Kikuyu custom, what used to happen is the house the door never used to face the gate. So the door would face the other side from the gate. And if the man was coming home late at night, he'd be required to whistle as he comes in. So as you enter your compound, you whistle.
As a warning sign.
As a warning sign. So
because you know your wife might be having it with somebody else.
Exactly. And you also give them time. So the person actually leaves.
How much time would you give them, do you reckon?
I don't know.
No, I'm joking.
I don't know. I think maybe sometimes a guy would want to find out exactly who has been
the
here.
The question you ask is, once the whistle
is
heard, then the situation is an emergency.
The situation in the room would change. Basically.
So, not much time is required.
The situation in the room basically just changes from that point on. So it's time for you to up and go. So it's either you leave the house or you go up the rafters.
Okay, of course that's unheard of.
One of the
at
reasons
this
why you had
age.
the rafters was that. You had somebody going and hiding up the rafters, and the man was never allowed to actually look up.
But you see, this is interesting, because you're talking about communities where a man was going to visit the wife, and you're assuming the man lived in the same house as the wife. There are communities, such as the one where I come from, where in that traditional setting, wives had their own houses, and the father of the home, the man of the home, had his own house.
And the woman would come and visit
They would
him.
visit him, and his children would eat in his house, all of them. So many children growing up didn't really know. I mean, the issue of so-and-so's mother was never really an issue.
It was a community.
Yes, you had one father. The children were identified by the fathers, not the mothers. Yes, they were the father's children.
Yep.
Okay. Now, sorry, please. Okay, what I was going to say is this. How polyandry, even in modern times, when you hear of people who have as many wives as Nabi here, or Akuku Danger in South Nyanza, the truth of the matter is a lot of these relationships survive in the women's state because there was what I'm calling community assistance. There would be relatives who would ensure that these women are well looked after, and that the children are well looked after, and that they go to school.
Okay.
So the polyandry you speak of was not spoken of publicly, but it existed.
What if it was to happen today, at this day and age? Eric, male ego too big to take it?
Yes, it is. You know, it actually, I think I think it does happen. Just the same way we have Mpangwa Kandos for
Guys, women have their
men.
Ben 10s
Yeah,
and so on. I
women
think
have
that's
their
the
Ben 10s.
lingo
Yes.
I've heard out there.
Exactly. So there's Ben 10s. It still happens. But the same way, the ego issue cuts both ways presently. Today, if a woman hears or gets to learn or suspects that her husband has a Mpangwa Kando, she gets hurt. Right?
They got hurt even before. It's just that societal norms dictated that they conducted themselves in a certain way.
And you'd live by it.
These are women. Ask them. Are women wired to accept other women? And ask them. Women are monogamous.
And
They are generally very monogamous.
So that's why we have this in our community. So it's not even the Mzungu or anything. It's actually the women who've taken over.
Believe me, this accepting other, it's learned behavior. So you're born into that situation. You see it happening. So you focus on your children and you focus on your friends and you focus on your activities. And there were enough activities. The man has a role, you respect him.
Yep.
And for a long time, you'd find the very concept of love as we understand it from a Western concept. For the African relationship, it was respect. So long as you respected your husband, for all purposes, you
It was
loved him.
purely practical, pragmatic. It didn't have the romanticism that we see now.
Oh, there was romance at some point. Yes, but by the time these women were being married, there was some romance. The issue here is how long it lasted.
Right, and how long was that?
I've got Francis on the line before you even come in to answer that. Francis, good morning.
Good morning.
What are your views on polygamy, polyandry?
Wow. Okay, it's a huge topic.
Yes.
But trying to narrow it down. In this modern age, putting a woman with two men simply won't work.
Why?
Because, as you said earlier on, that women are a one-person thing, one woman, one man. Nowadays, if you try and put it like this, a woman with two men, a woman cannot split herself into two. She's an emotional creature. If you have, if you have intercourse with a lady, once, twice, she'll fall in love with you.
Good Lord, okay. Is that what's been happening with you?
Okay.
Keep going.
See, these other men will know that there's something. This will bring in these two men.
So again, it's about the man.
Absolutely.
Man.
It's a patriarchy.
Go on.
A man can have two ladies in this sense. Men, before they love, it takes time. Have you ever seen a man who has a wife but has a Mpangwa Kando? And the Mpangwa Kando knows she cannot call past this time because he respects the wife more. Yeah, any ashamweka mali pa wewe ni Mpangwa Kando, and she knows that. He will provide, but atafika point ya kwa wife ama ati wife amjue.
Okay. Thank you.
But women cannot have it.
Thank you very much. And this is a conversation that's ongoing here. But
He's talking more about maybe Kenyan society. I was hoping to approach this more from
An international perspective.
absolutely. So those are some of the little nuances we have within our society as we know it in terms of calling after a certain time. Those are the setups we have. I want to talk about it more from almost an anthropological point of view, not just societal. Whether women can have more than one husband. CT.
There are communities that actually have the situation described. They have them. Some communities, the famous ones, people talk about it, the communities in the Himalayas.
Yes.
They have it. But you see,
And it's very normal.
it's not just normal. It
is
they,
the
they
way.
They don't know any other way.
It is the conventional way.
Yes, exactly. So remember what I stated first, that some of these things are learned behavior. You are born into a situation and that's what you see. And that's your norm. So that's what's normal for you. Part of the reason why polygamy is a debatable subject in this country is because of the hypocrisy that we live in. Kenyans want to be seen. This issue of being seen, earlier on we were talking about the need to be seen to have money. Well, there's a need to also be seen to be moral and to be good, and that's why people go to church, and that's how our churches are full.
So not to be good and to be moral, but to be seen to be
yes.
good.
Seen to be.
So it's not internal, again, it's
No,
external,
but
extrinsic.
it's manifested by your going to church. Now, you will be conflicted.
Oh, yes.
Because there is what you want to do and there is what you want to be seen
to do.
Yes. So that is why this becomes a debate. And that's why we have this drama when supposedly important people, well, it's televised and it's made public, but it happens all the time. People die, men die, and lo and behold, some other woman, in many cases, some other women
Pop up.
with children who are color photocopies of the person who has actually passed away. So it's not something that's going to end soon. Because the question that you ought to be asking is, how do you deal with hypocrisy? The stigma you speak of is born out of this. How do you deal with hypocrisy? And the thing is, it seems to be a national norm.
I mean, if you're looking at what, Wamushomba said, she basically is saying, look, we have all these single women without father figures. Where are they? That's one question that we're dealing with. Where are they? Secondly, it's like saying, okay, let's embrace what had happened in the past. And now all these men who are responsible for their wives, isn't it? Now take on all these other women as well. Take them on, because then we will not have situations whereby we have young women hanging around with no fathers for their children.
There's something I didn't understand in what Gathoni was saying. Sorry to cut you short. When she speaks about that, we have very many children with no fathers. Is she actually now saying that it doesn't have to be your child? Just go and get married to this woman so that...
Yeah. So you can see that their children have somebody to take care of them.
But where's the father?
No, not necessarily.
That's the question she was asking.
It could be that, but it also could be those who father these children, for heaven's sake, take responsibility.
Marry them.
Yes.
Marry these women.
Yes.
If you're going to father a child, it comes with the whole package, basically.
Actually, you see, the thing that we're not raising here is, remember, you do have situations where women want children, but they do not want husbands.
That is also quite rampant now.
Yes. So, at what point do you decide which is which? Because there are situations where some unprotected sex is had, and the issue comes bubbling forth a couple of months down the line, and now the question is, who looks after this particular human being? Now that's one debate. Then there's the debate: I would like a child, but I do not want a father or a husband. I may want a father figure, remember, but not necessarily a husband. And then there's, I didn't quite plan for this, but then it happened. Or I would like this now, but then I have another family, and how on earth do I now manage these situations? So all these things come into play.
So then are there cases, so are we saying now they're now a now polygamy, we're saying, as it were, should not then be applied across the board. We should say there are particular cases in which, okay, then fine, it's okay that you can go in cases where women don't have children, women don't have husbands for their children, or there's some kind of irresponsibility, then polygamy can come about. But other than that, we're not allowing it.
What are the next steps maybe we should take in this?
Are we really the ones to make a decision, the next steps to take? Look,
no, as a society.
Conversations.
We are having a
Let's keep
conversation
having
because the steps that are being taken are clear. Okay? People aren't going to stop having panguacandos. It's not going to happen. Okay? People are not going to have children supposedly out of wedlock. It's not going to happen. We are not going to have a situation where women want children but don't want the bothersome nature of having a husband hovering around your neck. It's not. In fact, it's going to be on the increase. So, what are we asking? Which of these questions do we want to answer? Because you can legislate. You can legislate that if fatherhood, because it's against fathers here, if fatherhood can be proved, then certain things are done. Do you see that piece of legislature going through our parliament?
Oh, there's no way that's going to happen. I can tell you now for free.
Yes, exactly.
It won't happen.
So the issue is this. If polygamy is an issue, ask the important question, why is it an issue and to whom is it an issue? Because when you answer that question, then the solution is not that difficult to arrive at.
It's at loggerheads with Christianity for starters, and then of course the Western
Actually,
values.
not necessarily.
It is.
No,
it
no.
is. He shall become one with
Njeri, that same Bible, that same
Old
Bible.
Testament.
No, becoming one is New Testament, actually.
That's what I mean. It's the Old Testament condones it. The New Testament condemns it.
Actually, even the New Testament, because St. Paul was writing, And this is something that he said. It is a subject of debate. That those who aspire to be leaders, who aspire to be bishop, who aspire to be the leaders of the flock, the shepherds in a community, must be husbands of one wife and must have children who are well behaved. So as to set an example. So as it's in the Bible, so when such a statement is made, you ask, so if I'm not aspiring to be a leader in the church,
it's okay.
So is it okay?
It's okay.
Not that it's okay. I don't think necessarily that it was okay, as opposed to that it was happening.
No, it could just mean must be husbands. The one wife is normal anyway, but it could just mean that if they wanted to go into leadership, they must be married.
At least they must be married.
I think that's the interpretation, because there's so many other quotes from the New Testament where, as I say, Jesus Christ reinstitutes God's original standard on polygamy, which is one man, one wife.
You know, as I said, I am merely issuing it. It states clearly, must be a husband of one wife. It's so clearly stated.
And well-behaved children.
Yes, that it's like, okay, so if someone is a husband of more than one wife, then you shouldn't aspire for that particular position.
No, if somebody is not a husband of any wife, then you shouldn't.
Now you've extrapolated that particular
That's the way I want to interpret it.
Well, that's actually the basis that a lot of, because if you want to enter into the clergy, for example, they actually look at you and ask, are you married? Because it's actually one of the kind of like requirements or prerequisites. Not to say that they don't take any members of clergy who are not married, but it's actually something that they look at and say, well, are you married?
Demonstration of responsibility.
Demonstration of responsibility, yes.
CT is being mischievous with this word one, because he's saying for them to feel the need to put the word one, it must mean that others had more than one.
Yes.
Whereas no, I think it had become commonplace, and the Bible does use exhaustive language.
No.
Yes.
You are the legal man here, but so I'm going to take you back into something like as basis we're discussing the Bible, the 10 Commandments. Those commandments were issued because there were things people were doing, and they are now being told, don't do this. Thou shalt not. It means you were doing it. Yes. So the logic that I am putting forward, even this argument of one wife, is the same. It's not any different.
They were doing it, they are being told.
But no, you're being told, no, if you want to be, we've had people who had leadership.
They had been doing it in the Old Testament, but it's condemned in the New Testament.
It was taking a while
so
also.
Maybe
this is during the initial implementation phase of the New Testament. Remember? So
do you think there was a commission?
Yeah, there was a BBI.
It was an initiative.
What St. Paul was just basically the chairman of the BBI, and he was saying, this is what we are doing. This is the first phase of implementation. Now Njeri is bringing amendments.
No, but that's a very interesting way to look at it. It's a very clever way to look at it.
2,000 years later. This is a Situation Room on Spice FM, 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa. If you're in Nyeri, it's 90.9, Eldoret, 96.7, Nakuru, 96.0, and Malindi, 97.6. The conversations that we've been having this morning have been diverse, varied, and deep. We started with looking at what KRA has been doing in the recent push towards manufacturing sector and so-called tax defaulters. We went also into looking at what was it that you
the Kenyan dream?
Kenyan dream.
Yes, the Kenyan dream and
polygamy is a Kenyan dream.
Polygamy is
wow.
Among men, you say.
Among men. And Njeri has brought in the issue of let's embrace polygamy and polyandry as a society, because we've got to be real and real among ourselves. When we come back out of this break, we'll now talk about the UhuRuto marriage. Is it alive? Is it broken?
Is it time it were?
Is it time it were broken? Keep it right here. It's 20 minutes after 9.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
In March 2013, Kenyans went into a general election, and among the candidates on the ballot, and this was the first time in the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which said that when you go into a ballot seeking the highest office in the land, that's the presidency, you will have a running mate. And we had, of course, Uhuru Kenyatta, and his running mate was Raila Odinga.
Wow.
Freudian slip.
There you go.
Should have been. No, I'm joking.
Uhuru Kenyatta and the running mate was William Ruto. We had Raila Odinga and the running mate was Kalonzo Musyoka. All right. We had Peter Kenneth and the running mate was Ronnie Osumba and others. And of course, Uhuru Kenyatta was elected and he became president. They were sworn in, the president and the deputy president. And that, how many years is that? 2019 minus 20, what were your mathematics? 6 years. So 6 years down the road, we have had the president and his deputy serve a complete term and gotten re-elected. And now they're in their second year of the second term. But then we've also seen some what people would describe as fractions in this marriage. Some say that March last year, when President Uhuru Kenyatta held a meeting with the opposition leader Raila Odinga in Harambee House, and William Ruto was not in town. He was somewhere out of town, and it's said that William Ruto was actually given a call by the president and told, I've had a meeting with Raila and we've discussed and we've agreed that the best thing for this country is for us to work together, and we are going to make a statement, and a joint statement where we're going to talk about building the bridges of what's broken in our society. And William Ruto immediately tweeted, immediately after the president and the former prime minister issued their statement, and he said, I welcome this handshake. It's a good thing for the country. However, after that, we have seen very many instances where it appears like William Ruto is not happy with the handshake. It also appears like there has been some unhappiness, if I may call it that way, from the side of the president towards his deputy. Now, let's look at what is in the papers today, what the president said yesterday. He was responding to what has been advocated by, or what has been mentioned and spoken of by his deputy and the deputy supporters. And that's about dynasties versus hustlers. Because one man has gone saying, you know, I'm a child of a hustler. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I have grown up, I have fought hard, I have risen to the position that I have risen to. On the other hand, we've got people who were born at positions of privilege. They had names that were easily recognizable, and they have held senior political positions in this country. And of course, he wasn't naming names, but we all know the names of people who have big names in their family, right? Raila Odinga has gone on to say, no, come on. If you look at my father was a child of a hustler. He says, Odinga, the son of Raila, was the son of a hustler. Just because my father was a vice president at one point or the other doesn't mean that I actually have privilege. The president has also said, just because my father was the president of this country doesn't mean that I have privilege. And in fact, yesterday he was saying this notion of dynasty versus hustler shouldn't even emerge or have become a conversation in this country. Because the people of Kenya vote for who presents himself or herself for leadership position. If you present yourself for leadership position, whether you are born by a hustler or whether you were brought up in State House, if the people of Kenya think that you deserve it, they'll give it to you. If they don't think that you deserve it, they'll not give it to you. No, this has actually brought in a lot of conversation on whether president and his deputy are falling apart, whether this marriage was a marriage of convenience brought together by Ocampo ahead of the 2013 general election. And now that the cases in The Hague were dropped, the two of them don't necessarily have to work together anymore. And I am saying, well, actually, before I say what I'm saying, I've seen it being said that it's no longer a question of when.
It's no longer a question of if.
It's not a question of if, but when the UhuRuto marriage breaks. And I don't think so. I think we are in the 7-year itch. And the 7-year itch in a marriage is a psychological point in time where Njeri will come and tell us because she's
How would I know?
because she's widely read. It's a point where in marriage, you've gotten accustomed to one another. You've gotten to a point where the marriage is losing that luster, that what shall we call it? The spark in the beginning. And now everybody's trying to do their own thing in their own way. And, they're trying to also, it allows somebody to start looking for a Mpango wa Kando or a Ben 10. And maybe what we're seeing is, persons looking for Mpango wa Kandos or Ben 10s, but they are still firmly in this marriage. And I actually believe that the UhuRuto alliance, the UhuRuto marriage, is still firmly on course and on track.
If we're to keep your analogy and use it as the marriage, yes, 7-year itches do exist. You know, some emotional exhaustion and irritation from each other briefly, but you don't go around announcing it. It's not made public and it doesn't leave the household. Now here, you're seeing utterances
in the market.
Utterances out there. So for me, I don't think it's an itch per se. I think there's proving to be fundamental differences in terms of maybe ideologies, outlooks, and especially for the future. Somebody's planning their next marriage whilst they're still in one marriage. They've been asked not to, if we stick to this analogy of a marriage. So I think it's something that will eventually disintegrate. I don't see it holding.
You know, in politics, I am usually afraid to make the sort of definitive statement that Njeri is making, because the history of our politics has indicated clearly that if you're talking about political musical chairs, forget playing what is known. We've introduced some new moves in these dances. Alliances that were unthinkable, such as the one that we are speaking of now. Nobody would have foreseen it have happened. We've seen things that even pundits, people who claim to understand these things, could not have foretold you. So even in this situation, we are in the second year of a 5-year term. This thing could as well be stage managed, just to sort of like figure out what the people are thinking, how they will go about this. There is too much at play here for one to be definitive. Too much.
What is at play?
What is at play is supposed disagreements. There are supposed disagreements. There is no actual fallout. It's just words, words, words. That's it.
But the fact that they're being played out publicly,
it's for the public to consume
on national papers.
Yes,
Why?
It's for the public
to consume. It'll be very hard to bring people back together again once they've created a rift. Remember, they sort of set their agenda with regards to which direction people look. So
I personally
they
don't
brought
think that
us together with the
Njeri.
ICC narrative,
Yep.
and now we're actually being there's rifts. It's going to be very difficult to
Njeri,
bring people back together.
You see,
again.
Njeri, earlier on we're discussing the concept of hypocrisy in a polygamous setup. This union is also a polygamy of sorts. Okay, yes, and the unifying factor, as you correctly put it, was The Hague. Okay, but as to unity per se, in the real sense of the word, that existed, that was a topic of conversation, not a reality.
It was superficial, perhaps.
Yes, yes.
It wasn't love; it was transactional.
Yes, what is playing out now is the reality. That's my contention. So, if you ask me, I'm simply saying, whatever you're seeing, it isn't as though it's something untoward. No. It's an eventuality that was likely to play out simply because of the genesis of the union to begin with.
Oh, I'm not suggesting it's at all surprising. What I'm saying is that it's taking its natural course and it's dying a natural death. It's happening.
So you actually think it's dying?
Natural death.
Ndu, what do you think?
I think the uses and the uses and intentions of the relationship in the first place have been lived out to get particular people into particular places of power as were this relationship to garner a particular to garner a percentage of the vote, as it were, at that time, to bring one person into power and the other person to kind of tag along as his helpmate. But then now the purposes for which they came together has been used, has been outlived, and so definitely you'll begin to see cracks as time goes by. You'll see cracks in that relationship, and if the fundamentals for which it was put together in the first place are no longer there, then the relationship itself disintegrates. For all intents and purposes, for what it was put together to be used for has been done, and now clearly it's really a relationship. You know what? I've moved on because for whatever I had joined with you in the first place, I'm done. And it's clear because such utterances that have come out recently, I don't think those could be staged managed. Although I think we'd be very surprised at what politicians can do. However, I don't think such things would be stage managed. I don't think the sentiment that has come out verbally would be stage managed, or somebody could pretend to the extent to which we've seen them play out, especially in the media.
So Ndu Okoh thinks that, well, this marriage is done.
It's done.
It's dusted. Let's divide up the
We're
wealth.
waiting for the certificate of divorce to be issued.
City Muga thinks this is just theatrics, just being played out. We are actually being taken out for a ride. There's something cooking. We have been given something for public consumption. And Njeri Thorne thinks...
Well, I mean, legally, if it was a marriage, we'll ask, are there irreconcilable differences?
Yes.
I think there are.
So Njeri Thorne thinks irreconcilable differences. I think it's just a 7-year age. I think, well, the marriage is still intact. It's just that people are going out and about. It's 9:30. We'd love to hear what you think about this. Our telephone number 0719-012-600 and also Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter. This is the Situation Room. Our telephone number 0719-012-600, 0719-012-600. Twitter Spice FM KE, Facebook Spice FM KE. Is the UhuRuto marriage intact? That's our question this morning, and I say it is intact. It's just going through a rough patch, and that's normal in any marriage. Njeri Thorne thinks, no, it's actually broken. City Muga thinks, well, it's intact, but they're just trying to play around with us. And our telephone numbers are 0719-012-600. Let's pick your calls. Good morning. Hello.
Spice FM?
Yes, Spice FM. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. And how are you?
Very well. Thank you. What's your name?
My name is Pamela.
Pamela, you are in the Situation Room. Do you think the UhuRuto marriage is intact?
Pardon?
Do you think the UhuRuto marriage is intact? Well, we seem to have lost so quickly. So what are you saying before we went into the break, CT?
I was saying this, that given the dynamics of our politics, this is just the second year of a 5-year term. Anything that you see now has no bearing on the outcome of what's going to happen in 2022. Not really. There's a lot at play. There is a lot that needs to settle. What we're seeing is dust. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of dust in the air. We will be able to see clearly when the dust settles. In a nutshell, that's what I'm saying.
What do you think is in the air?
Politics.
Yeah, politics.
Positioning.
But what?
Positioning.
For what?
Positioning for the highest office in the land.
But it's very clear. I mean, there's only one way to position. The position is you say, I'm putting myself up my candidacy for the next election.
Positioning in this country begins with making sure you have money.
Let's see what our callers are saying. Yes. Good morning. Hello.
Morning.
This is the Situation Room on Spice FM. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
What's your name?
Okay.
Okay. What's your comment this morning, Boke?
We're talking about the UhuRuto marriage.
Yes.
You see, Latiff, with Kenya, you just never really know, eh?
Yes.
Especially when it comes to politics. It could all be a big game. Then you see that Uhuru will start pushing for Ruto to be president. You might even find Raila is in the mix. He's also advocating for Ruto. So you never really know. For me, what I think is that Kenyans should actually reach a point and decide what they want for their country and their future, and start making decisions based on the future and not tribes or popularity of leaders. Because right now, we're not headed anywhere.
So your interpretation of this is looking at it from a point of complete, you don't trust anything, distrust.
Yeah, there's no trust here. I mean, Sonko can become the president. Like, we don't know. We don't know, yeah. So I think it's a matter of let's wait and see. I think people will know what's happening come 2021, when now the campaigns are hitting the ground proper.
Njeri?
As of now, it's all speculation.
Njeri has something to tell you.
No. She's got a good point. A day in politics is a very long time. So you can imagine 3 years, or is it 4 years? It's 3 years. You can imagine that's that's a century in terms of activities and things that can happen. And we've seen previous oppositions join the main party and so on. We've seen all manner of things, but there is some tension in the party. Mm-hmm. I think if we look at it, not even in the run-up to 2022, will the party hold? I see fundamental differences, irreconcilable differences. There's been warnings not to, for instance, go around campaigning from one camp of the marriage, and those warnings haven't been heeded. So there's even sort of insubordination, if you ask me, or as our prophet, the guy who's married to 39 wives would say, the wife is not being submissive, so to speak. So rules are not being followed within the marriage. I don't see it holding. And the fact that it's come to light, because I'm sure there's been tensions before, but the fact that it's now being, on public platforms, jabs are being thrown. We saw what the president did to his deputy as he was telling politicians that pursuit for leadership, it shouldn't be defined by where one is born, but what they can do. And that was a rebuttal. So there's a fight going on. There's a duel going on. It's being played out in the media. So it must actually be worse than we perceive. I don't think they would take us on a ride like this where they're doing this for entertainment
We're
purposes.
keeping our caller on the line so as she can actually continue the conversation and engage with you. Do you agree that that's what's likely to happen, that Jubilee is likely to completely disintegrate?
Honestly, at this point, I don't think we can speculate, but Njeri does have a point that they have really aired their bad
Dirty
family
laundry.
matters.
Yep.
They really have, and some things have been said, between the two of them, the leader and the deputy, which should never have happened. But I mean, if we look back at a situation of a family, marriages do get mended.
And remember, they're restraining themselves. Even with what is being aired, it's actually limited, and they're restraining themselves. So you can only imagine how bad it actually is.
Yeah, so hoping for the best, though.
Thank you. Thank you very much for calling, and keep listening to Spice FM.
All right, thanks.
If we were in some other country and not in Kenya, the things that we're saying may actually be true.
Which is what?
The things Njeri is saying. You see, look, not very long ago, we had a situation where we had secession on the table. This same country, people could hardly go to work. A lot was happening, and all you could see was doom and gloom. There is a culture that has emerged in Kenya. I am not going to talk about the genesis. I'm just saying there's a culture that has emerged, and it has happened often enough. Even when you think things are going to be completely and horribly bad, these leaders seem to find a way of talking and mending. They seem to find it. People get together and talk. They meet, they talk, and it puts a halt to the downward slide that was clearly evidence. I am seeing this. If what Njeri is saying is true, that conversation is going to take place. The only way it wouldn't take place is if what she hasn't stated clearly is that this rift has been there, it's entrenched, and it's only playing out piecemeal. And that's where the issue of restraint comes in. Now, in such a situation, then that's a totally different discussion. Then it isn't going to, it's not that Jubilee is going to disintegrate. The Jubilee has disintegrated. It actually doesn't exist. And what we're seeing is a strong effort to sort of like give the impression, like a really bad marriage, where everybody's just saying, we're in for the sake of the children. Okay? for the sake of the children. So that is the only scenario where what Njeri's saying would make sense.
Even at the height of the tensions in the run-up to the elections between NASA and Jubilee, the two leaders themselves, there was no direct mudslinging between themselves. They had, dogs, and they had noisemakers, and they had people doing it for them. But between themselves, they maintained the respect, which speaks a lot. But once you see people speaking directly to each other and sort of airing their dirty laundry publicly and throwing jabs at each other and jibes at each other publicly, personally, I think we're headed for a divorce.
I'm saying we aren't headed. I'm saying
we're divorced.
The deed is done.
We're divorced.
What we're seeing
is the decree Nisi about to come
yes,
out. The final document.
The certificate needs to be presented.
It's see, something that has been in existence for some time will have certain norms about it. Okay, so what you're seeing is that's what's playing out in the public. But
as Ndu said, it served its purpose. The two don't need to be friends, let alone
were they ever friends?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. They don't need to be in a relationship of any sort.
No, the purpose has been done. It's
and you can see, there's a lot of tension, especially when one is focused on development, as Uhuru is, and the other is electioneering. It's the two they can't go hand in hand. It's not possible. It won't hold.
You know what I find interesting? Remember, I was given an allowance and talking about probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
My assertion was it is early, very, very early.
Mm-hmm.
Scenarios such as this one have existed, and you've thought this one there is absolutely no way out, and a way out is found. You tell me, after 2007, 2008, who would have thought? Just imagined that you'd have a Kalenjin and a Kikuyu personalities forming a union that would form a government. It seemed improbable, but it happened.
And as a result, it won't happen again. Hence, the relationship is over.
This one is done. We are taking your calls on this, and we'd like to hear your feedback on this. Our telephone number again, 0719-012-600, 0719-012-600. Our SMS number 40127, and Twitter, Spice FM KE. Also Facebook is Spice FM KE. We'll be coming back with to read some of your comments on Facebook and Twitter. Right after this, it's 14 minutes to 10 o'clock.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Spice FM, good morning. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. What's your name, sir?
My name is Tony. I'm calling from Mombasa.
Yes, Tony, where are you calling from? Mombasa.
Mombasa.
What's your view on this?
Now that you're talking about marriages,
Yes.
I would like you to take this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
There's this man who has a girlfriend. They've grown up together.
Yes.
And this woman is known to break every marriage she goes into.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Then this man marries another lady. And then after some time, this man goes and brings the girlfriend and says she should be in this home without even consultation of the wife. How will you feel as the wife?
So we were discussing actually.
It depends. If the wife has been tanga-tangaing, then she has no right to speak. No?
I don't blame the wife
for tanga-tangaing. But she was tanga-tangaing before the girlfriend, who is a very long-term friend, and there is trust there, was introduced to the picture.
This girlfriend is a home wrecker, a well-known home wrecker, very well-known. And eventually, if you look at the scenario right now, that is what is happening. He came into Jubilee. He's breaking up Jubilee. That is what is happening. That is his motive. And another thing, we all saw a full motorcade, well-branded for campaign. If you're telling your colleagues stop campaigning, then this other person you brought in is doing the campaign. And you yourself, you're not going to fight for any seat come 2022. Then you tell me I should not campaign, whereas my competitor is planning to campaign. How the hell does that go on?
I'm your boss. I'm your husband. You
Can I
listen to what I say. I'm the head of the home.
Tony, I'd like to ask you a question. Tony.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you know, you're talking about the analogy of marriage. A marriage that is firm and strong, can it actually be broken apart by introduction of a girlfriend?
Of loose morals.
No matter what that girlfriend does.
Do you really think a good marriage can actually be broken just by the presence of a girlfriend? Especially one with the sort of reputation you speak of.
It can't. Only a marriage of convenience can be broken.
This marriage was very, very young. This marriage was very, very young. And considering the scenarios in our politics in our country, we all know what happens. So Ruto, to call him by name, our DP, he has to be very precautious. He has to be precautious. He has to prepare himself so that he's not caught off guard. These other guy.
He has to. So in the meantime, he doesn't serve his duty as the partner.
First wife. He's not,
if you're so busy chasing your next marriage, you're neglecting your first marriage,
your current marriage,
at the cost of millions of lives of promises you have made to your children. So you're neglecting your children. Even me as the husband, I would leave if you're neglecting my children.
You see, You see, they've made the place so hot for him, such that he has to tanga more. If the temperatures were cool for him, he would have cooled down.
He was
as well.
tangaing when it was winter.
But
it was
now
very cool.
the problem is they made the place hot for him, and he cannot be caught off guard. He cannot sleep.
No, they had promised each other. One of the vows in that marriage was to build their house and make sure their children are well taken care of. Now, he went outside to start looking for his future without taking care of the future of the children in the name of development. Now, once you start doing that and not living up to our vows, even I would start looking elsewhere while you're tangaing.
There's only one thing we need. If the president could today stand up and assure Kenyans, I told you, I stood before you, I told you it is my 10 years, then 10 years for Ruto. If only he would do that, just that one statement, it would cool off everything.
But who are we as Kenyans to be told who to pick? This is a democracy is for us to choose.
We are not. We don't have to be told.
Democracy is for us to choose.
You know, at times, as a leader, you should honor your promises.
To whom?
If you are a leader, you cannot. To electorate.
Who was the promise to?
And
who told you there was a promise?
This is what they made it publicly. He made it not once. He
left it to your interpretation. There was no promise as such. If you can send me a signed document where there was a promise as such.
Those were public pronouncements.
Word of mouth, which we honored. We took him as a leader.
It's a strong word.
He was promised deputy presidency for 10 years, and that he has had.
It's a strong
and then
word.
he was promised presidency for 10 years.
How lucky is that? 10 years of deputy presidency and 10 No one is promised anything. God picks the leaders. Only God can pick leaders, and then we as the electorate can endorse that through the election.
But Tony,
you know
Tony,
what
we're listening to Tony, yes, carry on with your views, please.
Yeah?
You are saying something. And you clearly believe very, very strongly in a certain position. Yeah. But using the analogy of marriage that you used, okay?
Yes.
The point I was trying to bring forth is that this so-called mpango wa kando, as given the example you're giving, sometimes just brings out the bad that already exists in a marriage. It's not that they are the ones who scuttle the marriage. The marriage has already been scuttled. Their presence
from the beginning.
Yes, their presence simply sheds more light into what already existed.
Remember what you said some times ago? You said any marriage can be healed.
Any marriage can
be healed. But the minute you bring another woman to a marriage that is ailing, you cannot heal the marriage.
So, Tony...
But if you take time to heal your marriage, don't bring another woman to the marriage. Don't bring your mpango wa kando to the marriage. Talk to your wife. Sit down. Made your marriage.
Fidelity.
You can make it.
Fidelity is the key word.
It is very much.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Even if someone was going outside there, infidelity on everything, you bring her down, you bring the man down, talk together as husband and wife, you can heal down. But the minute you bring another mpango wa kando from outside, it is done.
One final question, Tony.
Yes.
Is the marriage intact or not?
It's shaking.
It's shaking.
Definitely it is.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Very shaking.
Thank you for calling, and keep tuning in to 87.9 Spice FM in Mombasa. Very good engagement here with Tony. You know, he's saying, yes, it's shaking, but it's also because, and we had discussed this when you were bringing up the issue, Njeri, it's also because of the introduction of a third party.
That introduction came much later.
Look,
if we're still looking at
in
this
1997, what this gentleman was alluding to, we all understand and know. There was a party in Kenya that joined the then ruling party. A previously and seemingly consequence. No, if you had asked, again, they would have told you, no, it's not going to happen. This guy and this guy working together, sorry, no way. Not going to happen.
But we were told.
Yes, but the debate here is, did the cracks did they exist before he went in, or is he the person who disintegrated the party?
I don't even think the two are linked. They run at parallels. They don't cross at any point. But we have been convinced that the handshake and the BBI initiative has sidelined Ruto. Now, only if Ruto had another agenda would it sideline him. Why is he having other agendas that are different from the presidency? That is the question. Where the president's agenda is development, and the BBI initiative endorses that. It's a catalyst to that, considering the situation we were in as a country and the tensions that were there. Now, unless Ruto had another agenda, that would not be injurious emotionally in any marriage for somebody to come in and finance a program that we had planned to do, for instance, which is what I would like to look at the situation as. We're in a marriage, we've decided we want to build XYZ.
And this is the direction in which we're going.
And then somebody comes and finances it, and then the wife throws a hissy fit and decides, actually, I don't like that. You've brought somebody else in.
Our telephone number is 0719 012 and before we hear what Ndu has to say about it, let's hear what our callers have to say. Good morning, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you, sir?
I'm good, good, lad.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Mike.
Mike.
Calling from Nairobi.
Yes, Mike.
Now, I have just tuned in, and I am very interested in the conversation that was with, I don't know the name of that gentleman whose analogy was about marriage. Now,
it's called Tim from Mombasa.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I'll bring in another angle about the local Kenyan on the ground. Yesterday I was having coffee somewhere.
Yeah.
Without, I mean, I'm afraid of the risk of sounding tribal,
Mm-hmm.
but there is two members of a certain community. I eavesdropped them because we were sharing a table, saying, were it not for the handshake, right now, the kumera that would have happened would have been a really different one in terms of demonstrations and all that.
Right.
But that aside, to add on to that, I mean, the frustrations that we have as Kenyans, I was applying for a visa to go to some country.
Yep.
And the kind of crowd I saw there is no longer the youthful crowd that goes for studies or the elderly that are going for treatment. It is barely the productive ages of between 30 to 40 that are seeking citizenship to another country. I'll not mention the country. And it forms 60% because we are doing the English tests, exams, the IELTS.
Yeah.
So that explains how the 10 years we've had, whatever the result we have, and I cannot personally imagine another 10 years of the same. I mean, I just don't know who will be, but I know what I don't want. Is another 10 years of the same system coming in, whether there is a handshake or not.
Mike, were you successful in your application for a visa and
seeking
to leave?
Sure, I was.
So you'll be gone.
In fact, personally, I'm seeking to leave. I'm not. I don't have appetite for this.
So why are you leaving?
I mean,
better opportunities.
In fact, that is it. That is part of it. In fact, it forms 70% of the reason, and largely because what I was affording 10 years ago, I can't afford it right now. Okay? What I would afford to give my kids 10 years ago, I can't. In fact, I cannot even dream about it. In fact, I have to plan for it 3 months in advance.
Wow.
Now, why am I leaving?
Yep.
I'm leaving because wherever I want, wherever I'm going, I know they'll appreciate my skill, my work, and whatever I'll get there in one night shift is what I'm getting here in 1 month.
Okay.
So it all boils down to one thing. Where Kenyans have reached, I mean, you'd rather even be a citizen of another country.
So the main question, the main question, Mark, if I could just interject here, is the marriage intact? Is the marriage not?
Absolutely no. There was no marriage in the first place. And the marriage ended. The marriage ended after the ICC thing. I mean, after
they eloped briefly.
That was the point. I mean, after the ICC drama, that is when it ended. In fact, the glue that held the marriage was the ICC.
Thank you very much, Mark, for calling, and thank you, and keep tuning into Spice FM this morning. Thank you very much for your contribution. This has been a very interesting conversation, and I think we are at that point where what we need to do is start wrapping up. So I'll just do a quick one round. What is it that you've picked out of today's conversations, and what do you think of the marriage as we conclude? CT Muga.
If you're looking for an example of political marriages, which by their very nature are a marriage of convenience, this is one.
Njeri Thorne.
I think the cracks are cracking even bigger. I think it's headed towards the end.
looking across the board, clearly marriages are used for all intents and purposes, and we have particular agents of marriage that are used to crack on the children throughout the marriage relationship